All right, everybody, this is it, the countdown to the end of our epic week 3 asynchronous lecture for COM 2143 Digital Media Literacy. The gang's all here. We've brought them together. This is like a wide shot of all the Muppets, right? Coming into the Sesame Street gang, who what have you, coming into frame together. We've got McLuhan. We've got all the dimensions that were a part of this week's lecture series, and none of it would be possible without excellent questions to stimulate conversation, or even questions that still could benefit from additional brainstorming and proofing, but nonetheless have that magic spark to them so that we can make fire, right? So that we can make fire. But like Prometheus, there's always a price to pay. Anyway, we've got some final questions from Elizabeth G. And I'm just guessing, probably doesn't want me to reference her as Lizzie G. All right, sounds like that would be easy to say with repetition, Lizzie G. But I bet I get the thumbs down at some point on the message board or otherwise. Okay, has some questions about spreadable media for the first time, for the last time. Throughout the introduction, the authors define and compared spreadable media and stickiness. Based on these definitions, would you consider BuzzFeed media an example or hybrid of both types? BuzzFeed succeeds because of the cultural shift towards spreadable media. All right, good observation there. But BuzzFeed also masters the art of clickbait, right? Aren't they the original? Like they for a time owned the market on clickbait, and so BuzzFeed became such a now I'm playing cultural theorist here, such an enormous, recognizable website name due to their clickbait format that we now see regular mainstream news sources copy that same strategy because they are desperate for the clicks, because they need the clicks to get the ad revenue generated so that they can stay in business. I'm talking even local news affiliates nearby. Some of the local news affiliates that are very, objective and middle of the road in their reporting and presentation of news are becoming very savvy trolls of local constituents. That's how I'm framing that on the record, because they will utilize the ethics of clickbaiting to get. I don't even think it's. I don't know if they're weighing. I need to investigate this further. If they're weighing purely the comments volume now more than the clicking, because people are using that space to get into the nastiest shouting matches, including tons of memes. Memes, a topic we've covered heavily this week, and hopefully tried to break down an understanding of why they're popular, but why they're also problematic when you want to use a meme for argumentative sake. Next question. On page 3, authors talk about the importance of terminology and how language matters. They note, quote, "We become blind to some phenomena and biased toward others," end quote. Is it just me, or are the authors hinting about or talking about fandom without the social stigma attached? All right, fandom, yeah. As we've learned from Elizabeth, I'm waiting on that permission slip on Lizzie G. Familiar with the fan terrain, a Buffy aficionado. We'll have to expand that knowledge base. We've got to find the right outlet to get more of that content out of Elizabeth. But on the topic of fandom, Henry Jenkins, media scholar, elite, right? Much of his earliest work is prior to convergence culture, prior to spreadable media, was in participatory culture, and he was looking at fan cultures, and he was drawing on convention cultures before the internet was sort of creating these hybridized forms, and so a lot of his root interests do trace back to that phenomena, as you identify. However, so it's all too familiar for Jenkins, but these three authors collectively, they are trying to have a much broader social conversation. Okay, so they're looking for that broad utility, and that's important too, is because not everyone on the internet is a Uber fan, and so they need to have. We also need to have language that can help us explore what is happening on a much larger level. Would the site and brand hitrecord.org fit the stickiness model? Yes, it could. And I tried to increase my research knowledge of hitrecord.org site originated, or at least given that, we call it, that stamp of origination through actor, director, performer Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But that site has had some enormous success in years, but some of its history, while it is still active, kind of cuts short what exactly they've been doing, or how profitable and popular they've been in the last at least 5 years. So I'm still exploring that more, and I'd love to see projects on that. I think that's an unexhausted resource to talk about. But Hit Record could be an example, and the way users would need to go to that site to then kind of circulate content through it does speak to its stickiness, but also the spreadability it seeks to use, and it would have to maximize spreadability to stay profitable. Okay, so that's the important factor I think we want to consider with spreadability. We can spread all the little viral videos and memes and things like that, but for a lot of businesses, they need spreadability to function at a high level, to be profitable, to keep the servers running in their favor. Denise, popular culture, final questions. Denise talks about the role of communications changing the landscape and says, quote, without mass communications technologies, only localized forms of pop culture would have emerged, and they would have quickly receded from the scene, end quote, page 263. Despite the greater reach of communications, would you say that it is the nature of man to form small groups or cliques despite distance? For sure, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire. Tribalism and clannish tendencies are hardwired into human DNA. Okay, so for many people, millions of people, that is hardwired into their genetic makeup. Okay, however, so is a desire to explore, to connect, to conquer, to conglomerate. Okay, so those types of motives are also hardwired into us as humans, right? As human creatures, and so and this is where we get into this idea of utopia, of the the ultimate Edenic paradise, the complete singularity, kumbaya of human civilization, is a tough sell, because it's not just theologically, right, but or politically. There are natural mechanisms about the world. Some are ingrained, some are geographical, some are social, cultural, and other, that create the template for distance and dissonance, and so we simply have to continue to nurture and navigate as a means of productive support. Follow-up question: are our, quote, sense ratios, end quote, from page 266 still operating at peak performance, or are they overwhelmed by what modern technology has to offer? Let me make a superhero comparison. Like Daredevil. Are we familiar with Daredevil? You don't have to have seen the Netflix series or the terrible Ben Affleck feature Daredevil to know the character. But anyway, like Daredevil, who was blind, was a blind superhero. Some of our senses and our sentences are heightened by these digital advancements, these technological expansions, while other senses, right, others might be dulled. Okay, so it's possible and probable that our senses evolve based on our surroundings. Okay, and that's a little bit that gets into a little you-know-who terrain there. But yeah, adaptation theory, it could be worth exploring in the context of media advancements. It sounds interesting. But even talking to optometrists, and I have talked to some optometrists, right? I probably should talk to more. Their observations in conversation with me are that they have seen in recent years changes in physical sight of patients, whereas the more we're relying on technologies like smartphones and tablets, devices that we're holding up close, right? The more we're using these type of laptops and so on, devices where we're looking this, we're seeing an increase of eye strength to look at small sized amounts of information very close, but we're losing that long distance sight. Maybe that you've got your cones and your rods. Those parts of your eye are interpreting different data in different ways. We're losing some of this, and we're losing some of that distance eyesight. And so notice how you're seeing that pivot away from maybe those hunter-gatherer type instincts and senses, right? When we were at peak form as hunters, sort of human subgroups, culture groups, the eyesight had to be exquisite to be able to track food, sustenance, that sort of thing, other living things. And now we're tracking it like this, right? So it's like neat. Order take, Siri, order takeout. So great question. There's something to that. Our senses are in motion. Final question: as memes age, will they have a life cycle like fashion? What's old is new, so on. Will LOL cats make a comeback like bell bottoms in the 90s? Clever wordplay here. I like what's going on. The direction of thought is fun, but I also would suggest internet culture moves differently in space and time than the way we've traditionally thought about culture in even just the US in the 20th century. Humor fluctuates. Humor is already subjective, but humor fluctuates moment by moment, or meme humor, based on activity, circulation, and so on. It's hard to say with so much new traffic going on all the time. It's almost to the point of unpredictable. I mean, this summer everyone's doing the Kiki dance. Don't ask. But where are the ice bucket challenges, right? I mean, that had a cultural imprint in the moment because it was innovative in the moment. It was doing something new, thus it was exciting in the moment. But now that moment has passed, and are we using that anymore? We'll continue to see those types of trends with internet content. This has been an exceptional session. Thank you all. Looking forward to the future.